Welcome back to the show, everyone. Of course, we love our city, but there's always things you can find out about where you live and the cool things that you could be doing. And who better to check it out than wallpaper and the beautiful guest joining us now.
That's right, Hadani Ditmars. You've met her on our show many times, and she's here now with her brand new Wallpaper City Guide, Vancouver. How are you?
Hi, Hadani. How are you?
I'm good,
You
thanks.
look lovely.
I was going to say, can we start with what you're wearing? Because it's actually in the Wallpaper City Guide.
Well, I'm actually wearing a beautiful original silk jacket by Joanna Stanaskis, who's one of the local designers celebrated in the book. And she has a retail outlet called The Silk Project.
Yeah, really
which is
cool.
In the book as well.
And in the book, you're going to find so many other things. Maybe you can explain the concept and the city guide itself.
Well, the Find and Wallpaper City Guide series has been going for several years now, and it's a very prestigious international design guide to cities around the world. So we're among Paris, Rome, Istanbul, New York, etc. And it's a real feather in the cap for our city that they asked me to do a second edition. The first edition came out in 2008.
Yeah.
So of course there's been so many changes post-Olympics to our skyline. There's several new hotels now.
We're post-riot as well,
Yeah,
which
I
you
mentioned
actually you refer to in your introduction, which I loved because we would all love to sort of brush it under the table, but I think it's important that you incorporate it into any discussion, right?
Well, I think the feeling in 2008 was that the city was sort of very aspirational and looking towards the Olympics and big things happening, and I think I said, are we ready for our close-up or something? And now it's like, are we ready to write our own script? Because we're kind of coming into our own, you know, we're at that sort of transitional stage as a city.
Yeah.
There's lots
Awkward
of
youth
questions
is over.
about our identity, and so, but we still have beautiful restaurants and wonderful interiors, great public architecture,
And let's get to
etc.
the architecture first and foremost.
No
We've got
surprise
some great
that you
buildings
love
here,
this.
and we're going to start with the Electra. Why did you pick this one?
Well, the Architour section is the section of the guides that celebrates often very classic mid-century modernism in cities around the world. And this is a classic. I mean, this is one of our great mid-century buildings.
Yeah.
So,
How much does architecture set the tone in a city, and especially in Vancouver, for what's going on and the feeling and the vibe of the city?
well, I think, you know, the great era for our public architecture was the mid-century, you know, and it's now actually, there's more interesting public architecture being commissioned in Surrey, for instance.
Yeah.
There is a mention of the new library
the
and
library
the whole
and
master plan in Surrey. I'd like to see more interesting public architecture happening now in the actual city of Vancouver, but we're constrained by perhaps space and bylaws
Zoning
and other things.
blah, blah, blah.
But yeah, so, you know, one is always nostalgic for that time when you could be a little bit more creative
And
with
free.
public commissions.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at SFU.
SFU, another
It's
great example of being free
amazing.
to...
And what a beautiful photograph. No accident in photographs that way, of course.
Well, you know, I grew up on this campus. I was actually, you know, my dear old friend Arthur, the late great Mr. Erickson, we owe him such a debt,
Yeah.
you know. His work still speaks volumes, and to me this is an expression of so much of what his work was about, you know.
Yeah.
Concrete is the new marble, the sort of classical composition, the sort of Mogul influence. It still stands the test of time.
Simple and elegant.
Yeah. It was quite a place to play in as a toddler, I have to say.
Yeah, the inspiration was literally around you at all times. We wanted to highlight the Marine Building as well. That made the Wallpaper City Guide, the
One of my
Wallpaper
favorites.
City Guide.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's our Art Deco classic, so we have to include that one in there. And it's interesting because, can you see the Shaw Tower behind?
Yeah. Juxtaposition.
Yeah, I like the Shaw Tower. It's a nice
Me
tower.
too. Okay, and last but not least, Robson Square, at least when it's not under construction, as it seems it always is these days, it's beautiful.
An urban oasis, and with Cornelia Oberlander's fine landscaping. And actually, the law courts are in the book as well. I mean, you know, it's that whole sense of the skyscraper horizontally laid out over 3 city blocks. And it's interesting because I'm on my way to New York to do this launch on the 13th, celebrating Vancouver in New York. And Jeff Breithaupt, the cultural attaché, is going to be there and introducing me, and we're doing a whole presentation on Vancouver and its built environment. And 2 days later, I'm doing a presentation at the Center for Architecture on Iraqi modernism. And believe it or not, there's this really strange and interesting resonance between Arthur's work and Iraqi modernism, and you really see it in the law courts. There's this kind of sense of, I don't know, modernist hanging gardens of Babylon or something.
Interesting.
Yeah, and when I went to Baghdad for the first time, I remember just seeing some kind of detail of landscaping and water and concrete, and I thought, oh my God, this is like SFU. But it was the Al Rashid Hotel in Baghdad.
Interesting. Well, and great ideas don't happen in isolation, right? I mean, there is something to be said for just a general feeling and a human instinct to create.
Arthur was so influenced by the East and by his travels.
Yeah.
And he really brought an internationalism to this city that was expressed through his design. And I hope that we can keep that going, you know, because we have so much that's specific to the West Coast that's so important to celebrate. At the same time, I think it's important to sort of
grow.
Keep that universality.
Broaden the spectrum as well.
We're going to touch quickly on urban life as well. Gastown, of course, is flourishing right now, and we're looking at the diamond.
Yeah, we put the diamond in there. It's a fun place, and it looks over, you know, the Riot Square. I remember this place when I was in a post-punk band in 1984 called the Jetsons, when I had hair like yours.
Of course you were, Hadani.
So funny.
And it was the Savoy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we used to have the Battle of the Bands there.
Wow, there's a little bit of history.
We lost to a band called the Reptiles, if I remember.
Damn those guys, or people.
And another great spot in Gastown is Nuba, and I've always loved the entranceway to this building here. It's so different.
Right. Well, the Dominion building just next door, and it's actually the shot we have in the book is of their new cafe closer to Main Street, which has this sort of like I think the Scott Cohen, the designer, was going for a kind of 1970s Middle Eastern roadside cafe vibe, whereas this is much more kind of Casablanca.
It is.
You know, this one, but I love this one too.
I love the ones that we've highlighted and that you've highlighted in the book as well. And we're going to move on to Bao Bay as well, because it does show the change that's happening to the city all the time, and this confluence of cultures, and you know, in such an interesting way.
Yeah, Bao Bay is great, wonderful food, very inventive, and of course, it's part of the whole Chinatown revival.
Yeah.
And fantastic food, but when you go inside the restaurant too, such great history of the family of the restaurant. It's just such an
But this has been a part of the city that often, I remember during the Olympics, and you know, actively they were telling people, just don't go there. It's not the nicest part of town. And I was like, that's the fun, it's the most interesting part of town. Are you kidding me?
It's a very important Chinatown in North America. It's got so much history. It's got so much architectural history. We also have the Rennie Gallery as in our 24 hours section. We've got Peking Lounge in there. We've got a lot of Chinatown in the book.
Beautiful.
Well, Hadani, it is amazing.
Pick
and
up
you know
the book.
What? Pick it up. Watch the app too. If you're from Vancouver, pick it up and go somewhere you've never been and just take a look at our beautiful city. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Marvelous as always. Enjoy New York.
Thank you.
And Indiana. I shouldn't leave Indiana.
Indiana,
Was it Indiana? Yeah, enjoy it.
Who's your country to talk about Iraq?
Yeah, that'll be interesting, won't it? I love it. We're going to take a break.